I don't if there are students that are on camera, but since all your students are there with you, we should be okay to do that. All right, hopefully everybody has that link. So this is me, I'm Rachel Olsen. I use she, hers pronouns, and I am the librarian for lots of different subjects here at UNCG, including sociology. I've worked at this course before. It's always nice to work with graduate level or upper level students. It's a different type of research that you're doing, and so I think in a lot of ways it's interesting and unique. So I'm happy to be here with you. So I've read your syllabus a little bit, and to my understanding, you have a draft of an annotated bibliography that was due today, but you have your final annotated bibliography, which is due on March 16th. And we're looking for 12 to 15 citations that address your topic in some way. And then you have a sort of a literature search due March 30th that I noticed. So those were the two like library type things that stood out most to me. And I'm guessing we're doing ASA citations for this class again. Is that right?
Yeah, Rachel, right. I think, different faculty have different approaches to citations, but I think assuming ASA makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great. Well, we will talk about citation more and ASA specifically. I'm also happy to answer other questions or just general things about citation. So one of the most important things you can do for yourself is to create a research question that makes sense and to have some keywords that are going to kind of help you when you're doing research on that particular question, especially when you're looking for literature. So what makes a research question like a good research question? So it should obviously be something you're interested in, particularly when we're talking about writing a thesis. Don't stick yourself with a topic that bores you to tears, right? You're going to be doing this for a while. It should be in line with any instructions you've been given. Obviously you want to follow directions. It should be manageable. So not too broad, but also not too narrow. So for instance, you don't want to say, I'm interested in climate change. That's great. It's way too broad. You also wouldn't want to say, I'm interested in carbon dioxide emissions or carbon emissions in the city of Greensboro, North Carolina. That's probably too narrow. We want to find something in between those. And it should be original as much as possible. I mean, obviously, you want to cite other things that help you, and it's never a problem to do similar studies, but you don't want to just regurgitate what someone else has said. So I'm going to show you an example of a method that I use that I would recommend you use when you're doing research. So I ask folks to take your topic and write it out as a sentence or a question. So here we have, the US should have stricter laws related to greenhouse gas emissions. And I think that's a good question. I think it's interesting. I think it is not too broad, not too narrow, right? It's, I have a geographic location, but it's a pretty broad location, right? An entire country. And I don't just say I'm interested in greenhouse gas emissions. What about them? I'm interested in stricter laws. So that's kind of where I'm getting with this. And from there, I encourage you to do this exercise with your own topics. If you highlight the most important words in your sentence or question, and then create synonyms for each one. So for United States, US, America, USA, I highlighted laws, regulations, policies, legalization, legislation, and greenhouse gas. I did the same. The reason I'm doing this is think of it as like a word bank. The more words that you can come up with that are related to your topic and related to the key concepts in your topic, the easier it's going to be for you to do searches and do different search word combinations. So hopefully that makes sense. We're going to do an example. The COVID-19 vaccine should be mandatory for all healthcare workers. So I just made this up as a sample topic. So can somebody in your class, maybe one of the folks who's on Zoom can type for you, can someone maybe have an idea of what the most important words are? And if you call it out, I can probably hear you. What are the most important words here?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, absolutely. That's a great one, yes. Let's see, I'm actually going to do healthcare workers together, but healthcare is absolutely, I would say there are probably two more. What do you guys think?
You mean specifically with COVID-19 or searches?
I guess in this sentence, what would be like, I would say there are two more like key words or key concepts just in this sentence. I'll give you a hint. COVID-19 is one of them. Ideas as to what the other one is?
Starts with an M.
It's vaccine. Yes, we're running out of words, right? What could it be? So let's create some keywords here. So we highlighted those three as the most important. What's a synonym for COVID-19, or another way that someone who's writing about it, like what else might they call it? What's it? Coronavirus. Thank you. What else? COVID-19 is a pandemic, right? So we might say pandemic. Anyone know the scientific name for COVID?
SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, it is SARS, something like that, etc. Any synonyms for it? You'll notice I also did pandemic because a lot of the scholarly literature that's going to be written about COVID-19 hasn't actually come out yet. So depending on some of your topics, and we'll talk about why that is, why the scholarly process tends to take a little longer. With some of your topics, if it's something kind of current, you may want to consider backing it out and being just a little bit more general, especially if it's a current event. So vaccine, what would be a synonym there?
Vaccination.
Vaccination, perfect. What else? Shot. Immunization, maybe. And then with healthcare workers, nurse, doctor, epidemiologist, hang on, epidemiologist, you get the drift. So we're coming up with synonyms to try and give ourselves more options down the road as we do our searching. Questions about that before we move on? Okay.
Rachel, what about the word mandatory?
So that's a really good question. So when we do mandatory or words like should or mandatory in a sentence, you usually wouldn't put those into a database or the catalog.
Okay.
Words that describe the relationship between other words are typically things to avoid. It's kind of quirky. A lot of people do say mandatory with sentences like this, and it's not wrong. You could do something like mandatory or compulsory or something. But I tend to avoid that.
Okay.
So I pulled this from a colleague's slides. She did a presentation last week. Encyclopedias are really excellent places to start for brainstorming, and we have a lot of encyclopedias available through the library's website. And as you're skimming articles or looking at book chapters, something like that, if you see important terms or things that you think like, I wonder, that's a unique enough word or a standout enough word that I might get some results related to my topic, making notes of that. This is primary or secondary sources. You can ignore that. This was for a history class. And then grouping terms together, mind mapping is actually a really excellent way to do this. If I were in front of you, I would draw something on the board that looks like a mind map. I'll just see if I can quickly do it. So I am going to pull up a website, Bubble Us. I'll drop it in the chat if you're interested. There's another one called MindMup, I think it's called. And I can just do a quick example. So if we're mind mapping, you could do this by hand as well, but some people prefer a digital version. What you doing, website? Hang on one second. Here we go. So let's say greenhouse gas emissions, right? Let's say that was my main topic. And I wanted to do something like, it's been a while since I've used this tool. Give me just one second. Okay, so underneath that, I might put laws. Underneath that, I might put, I don't know, specific, if I knew the name of a specific law related to greenhouse gas emission, I might put that. Or you could do like a specific member of Congress that you know that's connected to it, something like that. Essentially what we're doing is a brainstorming exercise, a brainstorming.
The Green New Deal?
Sorry? Oh, Green New Deal. Yes, absolutely. That would be an excellent example. Green New Deal. And over here, you could do something like, oops. So you could put AOC over here if you're specifically interested. You could do AOC here, blah, blah. You get the idea. It's a nice visualization if you are someone who likes to organize their thoughts visually. So just putting that out there for you.
And Rachel, is that just accessible online?
Yeah, I dropped the link into the chat. I will also put it on this slide for you.
Okay, great.
If you are interested. And you can do it without signing in, but I would recommend if you want to save it, you should create an account. It's free and you can just use your UNCG Gmail stuff. Great job. Annotated bibliographies. So I know that you are at the point where you're turning in a draft of your annotated bibliography, but as you're refining it, some of these tips might help you. So what is an annotated bibliography? It is essentially a list of citations, and each citation is then followed by a brief descriptive but also evaluative paragraph, which is the annotation. I say here 150 words. I pulled this from Cornell. I usually tell people 150 words. I will say some instructors have different requirements for this. I worked with a political science class a couple weeks ago where the instructor said, nope, we're going to do 100 words or less. So it's really up to you. It's meant to be a paragraph essentially. And what you don't want to do is just summarize what, for instance, the article or the book chapter or the document says. If we wanted to read what the document says, we could just read the document or just read the abstract of the article, right? It is not meant to be a summary. It should be somewhat analytical. So the main question you're answering is, how does this source relate to the research that I'm doing? Why is this relevant? Why did I choose this as a source related to my topic? So hopefully that makes some sense, but we don't want you to just, regurgitate what the article says. Think critically about it.
Right, Rachel, that evaluative, would it also make sense to just ask yourself the question, how useful is this? What are its limitations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where might it fit in what I'm trying to do? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add some of those questions. That's a great point. How does this fit into my research?
Does it? Yeah.
Useful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, useful. I can't spell today. Useful. How does this fit, if at all? Now, if the answer is that it doesn't fit at all into your research, you may want to reconsider using it.
Mhm.
But it is an excellent question to ask yourself. That's a great point. And we can certainly do some more work around annotated bibliographies. I did want to just be sure to give you that because a lot of students, I think more at the undergraduate level, students will tend to just sort of think that it's, I liked the article. This article was nice. You don't want that. That sort of thing. I haven't looked at this link in a while, so I'm gonna hope it still works. These are some tips on creating an annotated bibliography, and I will say, this is an article summary, so be careful with this. You don't want to just do a summary. This is actually an activity outline for librarians to use, but I think that it does make some good sense. It takes you through kind of the different steps of writing a strong annotation. And one other link that I will add, but I want to show you in real time. We have a whole suite of library tutorials that we've created over the past year and a half, and we got really lucky. We did not anticipate COVID when we started this project, but there are several dozen library tutorials that you can do. I would say each one should take you no more than 20 minutes. And we have one specifically on annotated bibliographies. So I'll drop that here. I helped create a lot of them, not this one in particular, but I have seen it. And I think it has a lot of value. So I would encourage you to click through it. There's a quiz at the end, which you can choose to take or not take. But I think that this is quite helpful. And there's also one on literature reviews. And you can see there's lots of different ones here. You don't need to, you don't have to have this as a class assignment. You're welcome to explore any of these that you're interested in. And I've got,
Rachel, under that header,
Mhm.
library databases,
yeah,
could you go over that for us real quick?
yeah, absolutely. Let me just get to it on this page right here.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I get ahead of myself with clicking. So this is one of our tutorials that you could complete. And it is, I'm going to go over some specific databases with you, but this kind of explains the difference between a database and other types of sources.
Okay.
Yeah, so a database for our purposes, for anybody who's listening who is not familiar, which is perfectly fine, a database is basically a collection of articles. It's usually articles. Sometimes, like it says up here, you have data, images, videos. Most often what we're working with are articles. And so this tutorial walks you through kind of the broader concepts. And one of my colleagues created this. It's a really helpful slide deck that gets into different kinds of databases, different companies that own them, and some of the differences between them. I have a slide later on that talks about this because we'll look at a few different databases, but think of it like the difference between Hulu and Netflix, right? Like the controls are in a slightly different place and the content is different, but they essentially do the same thing. So yeah, I highly recommend this one as well, which I'll drop into our slides. But there are dozens of them, and it's definitely well worth a look. Let me just get back to that slide. Any questions while I'm doing this?
This is very useful.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of, like I said, we didn't anticipate COVID when we created that. We were just sort of fortunate that we had all that in place, and we've just been able to kind of expand on it.
Rachel, do you find, I mean, are you able to tell at this point in time that students are making more use of the library with COVID regarding, their master's work or maybe their dissertation work, whereas typically they'd be out there interviewing people and talking and in the field, as it were?
I definitely think that literature reviews and annotated bibliographies have gotten more popular as assignment types. I definitely think that people are more, I think that people are leaning more on sort of the more kind of review paper sort of model.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get back. I think technology does allow people to do some interviews, but you miss a lot. I was working on a project with a colleague where we were doing interviewing and focus groups. And we've decided just to kind of hit refresh and do it again once COVID is done. So that's a good question.
Wait, a question. How often do y'all like add new journals to like the school data, like to the school search? 'Cause I know for me, a lot of times, like when I look for articles, we don't have the rights to them.
Yeah, so that's a really excellent question, actually. So sometimes, so we buy access to different databases, and the library has something like 700 databases that are available to any UNCG user, and I'm going to show you a couple of them. And the way it works is databases are always adding like new issues of journals that they already include. But sometimes, I actually was dealing with this today, there are things called embargoes on articles. So if you are like, I don't know, the Journal of Assignment Design and Sociology or something, and there's an article that just came out in that journal, sometimes the publishers say, that's great, but you can't actually access it through your license for a year or for 30 days or something like that. And that is an attempt sort of on their part to get people to just buy the article. We don't want you to do. Please don't pay for information while you're a student at UNCG. At that point, you would put in an interlibrary loan request. So we
Well, see, I did that, and then the library loan people told me, well, we're not getting articles, like electronic articles and stuff like that.
I have never heard them say that. Gosh. And I'm not doubting you, but if you run into that situation, you could definitely send me an email, and I'll definitely look into it. That's odd. But in the time of COVID, who knows? But I haven't necessarily, maybe I'm not understanding right, but Usually we're able to find it some way. I won't say that there aren't exceptions because I'm sure that there are. But we're in lots of deals with different institutions around. It's called consortial deals, where we share resources. So if there's a specific article you need and you're not finding it, do email me because I'm interested in that and why it is they might have told you that.
And Rachel, isn't it the case that a lot of journals, academic journals now are monetizing and they're even charging the authors to publish
Yes.
in the
So
journal?
That is fair.
this is a pet peeve of mine. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's called an article publish processing charge.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to publish your research open access, where anybody, I just wrote an article,
Right.
and we're doing this. If you want to publish open access, you would think that you could just tell the article, the journal, like, yes, make this open.
Right.
But the hosting for that and these other kind of weird, obscure charges that no one understands called article processing charges
Mhm.
apply to open access articles. I've heard of people, they wanted $3,000
Yeah.
for the one that I just published. And we said no, which meant
Yeah.
that the article won't be open access for another
Mhm.
6 months. So it's their
Mhm.
way of applying an embargo even when it's supposed to be open.
Yeah.
There's a really good, there's a really good film I'd recommend. It is called Paywall. I'll see if I can find the link for you. It's a documentary about scholarly publishing and kind of
Okay.
how messed up the whole thing really is.
Uh-huh.
So I highly recommend that. But
Yeah, I would just had a piece accepted in Sociological Quarterly, and they wanted, if we did put it out
Mhm.
immediately, make it available immediately in the venue that you were talking about, it was $3,500.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's madness.
Mhm.
And I was going to,
Melody.
let's see. We actually have a fund which will cover up, it's the Open Access Publishing Fund, which
Oh.
will cover up to $1,000. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it normally doesn't cover the APC completely, but if you want to, try and piece together funding,
Mhm.
graduate students are also eligible for this
Oh, good.
this funding. So do let me know if any of you find yourselves in that situation. Also, sometimes there are predatory journals, which will sort of cold email you and say, write for us about this subject,
Right.
particularly if you're,
Predatory.
sorry?
Predatory, I like that term, yeah.
Yeah, predatory journals. And a lot of times they will try and get grad students to submit things,
Yeah.
try to charge them. My advice to everyone here is don't ever pay for access to information and don't pay to publish information, at least not out of your own pocket. If you ever have questions about that, we're definitely able to kind of advise on some of that.
Good.
Mhm. Can you all see the slides again?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Other questions? This is great. I'm happy to talk about other things before we actually dig into some of the databases. All right, so some actual tips for searching. This is just some general advice. One of my colleagues put this together on using the library catalog. And when I say the library catalog, I mean this red box. And it's the same red box. Let me know if you have any trouble with my screen. I think I shared it right. It's the same red box that appears on the library homepage.
Right, yeah.
And here on this library guide, which I realize I have not given you the link to yet. So let's do that. If you want to make a note of that link, and I would recommend that you maybe bookmark that or check it out. I'll give you just a second to make a note of that, and then we'll dig into this. But the red box that you see on this guide, which I'm going to call a lib guide for our purposes, and the red box that you see on the library homepage, they do the same thing.
Mhm.
And I'll also drop it in the chat for you. And you have the link to the slides, which means that you have the link to
Oh, great.
this. There's the link in the chat. So this is your library guide for this course. Every subject that we have at UNCG has its own general guide. So for instance, here's the one for sociology. And this is meant for anybody majoring in sociology or interested, but some classes like this one, because I think it's research intensive, I created a guide just for this course. So the library catalog is here. We'll talk through lots of different features of this guide, but let's just start with a basic search. So if I did pandemic and vaccine, for instance, this is called a Boolean search. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but this Boolean connector here, it's and. What I'm telling the catalog is, okay, catalog, show me things that have both the word pandemic and the word vaccine in the source. So I'm going to click search. And again, same as though I was doing it from here. And what I tend to tell people about this is think of searching in library databases and the library catalog as though you were shopping on Amazon, right? Like you enter a search term and you get all kinds of results, some of which aren't really that helpful. So you want to narrow it down. You look on the left side, same as Amazon. Your filters are on the left because the people who design these search systems know that your eyes are sort of conditioned to do that. So under held by, if I'm looking for books, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around too much. This is how you would search for books. And I say that you can find articles through the library catalog, which is this tool. And if you're comfortable doing that, that's awesome. But I prefer when I have to search for articles to do it in a database, which is different from this, which is the catalog. So under held by, I'll click the box next to UNCG. And I went from 74,000 to 34,000, which is great. Under format, if I'm specifically interested in books, I'm going to click the box next to book. Again, you'll see that you could do articles here. It's a personal preference. I click book. That takes it down to 214 results. So what I've said is show me books owned or accessible by UNCG that have both these terms. And this is what I'm left with. So two main types of holdings, ebooks and print books. So this is an ebook. It says ebook, publication date. I click view ebook. Now, earlier I mentioned that when you're looking at ebooks or articles, think of it like the differences between streaming services. So Netflix and Hulu look different, the content is different, but they essentially do the same thing. So what I'm saying there is that don't be surprised or alarmed if you click view ebook on something and it doesn't look like this. Different companies have different licenses, have different interfaces. You click read online and here's the book. You could scroll through it. You could click these arrows and just click through if you want. You could also search a specific name or a specific word. Search within the book, 5 results for George Bush. If I click on it, it's going to tell me exactly which page it appears on. You can click on it and it will take you to that specific mention. So it's kind of a neat tool. You can also download chapters. You can't download the whole book generally, but you could download a specific chapter. And by the way, that's something important to say. When you're doing something like an annotated bibliography, especially when you don't have a ton of turnaround time, you're not typically expected to read the entire book, right? So this is your thesis proposal course. So it would be entirely appropriate for you to find a book and pick a chapter or two. And that's what you read and cite and analyze. And when you write your thesis, when you actually do the work of your thesis, you could go back and read more of it if you want. But I don't want you to think that we're asking you to read a 500-page book right now. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Steve.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Another tool that I'll show you, but I want you to use it with caution, is the citation tool. It's this little quote box here. ASA is not a super common citation style. So most of the time in these tools, we don't have that option. In my experience, ASA is similar to Chicago author date. So if I click Chicago author date, it will give me a citation in Chicago author date style. big disclaimer here, these citations are generated by algorithms, and the algorithms tend to get it wrong a lot. So my advice to you, take this citation if you want, put it into your big bibliography, but then take the time to go here to your guide, and you have a tab on ASA style. And check it against the examples here, because I would hate for you to grab a citation from a generator and lose points or have errors because of, you didn't check it. So just take the time to check it.
I have a question.
Yes,
It's not related to this.
that's okay. Go for it.
How do we report broken links to the library?
That's a great question. If you had a broken link, you click the title, and there should be something.
Link.
Of course, this will probably make a liar out of me, but there is a report broken link function.
See, I thought the same thing, and then I could never find it. And
No, this is making a liar out of me. Okay, if you find a broken link, normally there will be something here that says report a broken link right there. And then it'll pop up for you. If you ever couldn't find it and you're like, this link is broken, you can always email me and I'll take care of it. We have e-resource people who can handle it. That's a good question. Because the catalog is massive. There are millions of items, so it's entirely possible that there are errors. The other type of book holding, print books. Some books are available as both. If you prefer the print, you can see this is available. Jackson Library Stacks, which just means that big white tower that looks like a prison in the library. And here's the call number. The call numbers, you probably know this by now. They're kind of long. We use something called the Library of Congress system. What you would do is write down the title, the author, and the call number. And we have charts in the library that tell you which books are on which floors. And I'm always happy to help you figure that out if you have trouble with it. If you're off campus and you're not sure whether or not this book is something you're interested in, if you click the title and view description, almost always, I would say 80% of the time, there will be a table of contents. So you could look at the table of contents before you come in and decide whether or not that's something you're interested in. Another thing I'd recommend, and Steve, we have till 7, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to, how long does your class go?
How about 10? I'm teasing you.
Okay, I'm like,
8 o'clock, 8:30, we're good. Yeah, please.
Okay, all right. I know, I could feel the panic in the room. Yeah.
I've been alone with my.
It's not April Fool's yet. Another helpful thing, subjects. These are like subject headings, suggested keywords that you might want to try if you're struggling to come up with keywords.
Okay.
And that's really the basics of books. Are there any questions about finding books? We're about to get into articles.
That's very useful.
Yeah, we have something like 1.2 million print books and 1.7 million ebooks. There's one other thing I'll caution you about with ebooks. And this really applies more when like the whole class has been assigned to read a chapter of an ebook. Right here under availability, your institution has unlimited access. That's great. It means however many people want to read this at a time online can. Some books, only one person at a time can use it online, or only 3 people can use it at a time. So if you are using a book, particularly for a course reading that you have a deadline on, go ahead and read it early, because that way it's not 11:59 the night before you're trying to read it and everybody in the class is trying to log on. It's just one thing I would say. Other questions? All right. So going back to our slides here, does anybody need a break? I know we've only been here for about 36 minutes, but I don't want to like torture anyone if you need a second. You feeling okay?
You okay?
Maybe
Yes,
just
okay. I think we're good. Yeah, thank you.
in a 3-hour evening course, I know you're probably doing a lot more. So normally what I would do here You can try it if you want. So let's go to kahoot.it. If you guys want to, this is optional. I kind of enjoy doing this with classes. Kahoot.it.
Well, Ariana wants to, she's a perfect.
I would do it from your phone. And this is a game, it's a quiz game. Give me just a second and I'll pull it up. And if you all don't want to do this, someone just say out loud, we don't want to do this, and I'll stop. Let me just get logged in. So this is a Kahoot that is about the structure of scholarly articles, which I think can be helpful. Just a second to get to it. It's kahoot.it from your phone or whatever device you're using. Give me just a moment. My computer, anytime I pull up Zoom and then try to pull up something else, it immediately is like, no. This one. Just a second. I have a ton of Kahoots. Most of them are nonsense. Okay. So, so in a second, it's going to pop up with a game code. So if you go to kahoot.it and then anytime now, computer, it will give you a code to enter and it will ask you for your name after you do that. It does not matter to me what you put as your name. Just keep it, you know, family friendly. If you wouldn't show it to grandma, don't put it. So if you want to play, go to kahoots.it, enter that game pin that you see there, and then your name. And I'll give you like a few seconds to join. In case I lose, welcome in case I lose. Great. And this is a relatively short one. This won't take long. Anybody still trying to join?
Yes.
Okay, no worries. We have time. I'm gonna like count to 30 and then I'll ask you again. Just take your time. Anybody need more time?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions about things we've talked about while we're waiting? I can definitely do that. I'll give you a preview of what we're going to do next. So after this, we'll talk about how to actually find articles, because I know that's the big question that a lot of people want answered. And then I'm going to tell you about a magical software that's going to save you hours and hours of time when you're writing your theses. Yes, theses. I was going to say thesi. And then we'll talk about citation. All right, so are we good? It's also fine to look on the side. You're good?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right, I think there's only like 8 questions. This is all about scholarly articles and the parts of a scholarly article. So, first question. A very brief summary of the article's contents. Some technical terms may be used. The key word here is very brief. Is it an abstract, a summary, the title, or the conclusion? This one always makes people mad.
Yeah, already mad.
It is the title. The title is technically a very brief summary of the article's contents. I know at least one person is rolling their eyes right now. It happens every time. What I always tell students is fight me on that question. So fight me. Okay, Rio is in the lead. Question 2, a somewhat longer summary of the article's contents, usually less than 250 words. Title, intro, conclusion, or abstract?
Yeah.
It is the abstract. Yes, it is
That's what happened when I saw you pick the wrong one.
an abstract. An abstract is just a summary of the article's contents, usually less than 250 words. This is why I say if we wanted you to just summarize stuff for your annotated bibliography, we could just read the abstract. So don't do that. All right. A list of sources that the author consulted while conducting their research. And there is more than one correct answer.
Oh.
This is a list of sources that the author consulted while conducting their research. Several of these questions, there could be more than one answer. So the answer is that they're all correct. It depends. Why do we call them different things? Great question, Rachel. So we call them different things. It depends on the citation style that you're using. So I have, you can't see me, why am I holding it up? But I have the APA manual here. And the APA manual specifically tells us that this should be called a reference list when you're writing an APA style paper. Other paper conventions, other citation styles say different things. Works cited, pages, bibliographies, references are all the same thing. Footnotes appear at the foot of the page on which the citation was made. Endnotes appear as a list at the end of the paper, article, chapter, whatever. All right. This presents the thesis of the argument and discusses why the topic matters. Methods, conclusion, title, or introduction. Presents the thesis of the argument and discusses why the topic matters. This is the so what? Yes, introduction. Excellent. All right. Summary of previous research studies that the author has reviewed. Study section, literature review, conclusion, or summary section. This is a summary of previous research studies. Literature review, great, yes. And it's not just a summary, I should say that. It's more than a summary. A literature review also makes connections between the sources. So usually the next step after creating an annotated bibliography is to sort of incorporate those annotations and notes together and draw connections between them. And we do have a tutorial on literature reviews. True or false, all scholarly articles are peer-reviewed or refereed. True or false?
Is that all published?
That's a good point. Yes, I meant all published. Yeah.
Okay.
All published scholarly articles. It is false. They are not always peer-reviewed or refereed. And I say that because a lot of, especially when we are talking about courses, a lot of instructors will say you need to find X number of scholarly sources. A source can be scholarly without being peer-reviewed. Usually they mean peer-reviewed though. So understand that there is a difference and that the peer review process is its own special magical thing, but they are not technically the same thing. Excuse me. Where should you look for scholarly articles? Where should you look, not where can you look? Google it, Facebook, library website, or come to the library in person. You probably could find something on Facebook, I suppose. It is not the approach I'd recommend. Great, come to the library in person or go to library.uncg.edu or your courses guide like we've been looking at. Why don't I want you to Google it? I don't want you to Google it because you're going to hit what's called a paywall, which is where it says you have to pay $30 to read this article. And I don't want you to do that. So, one more question. What should you do if you're struggling to find scholarly articles? Review the library's guides, email a librarian, chat with a librarian online, or give up. There is a wrong answer here.
Margaret, agree.
So these first three are correct. Anything to give up. And the big winner is, in case I lose third place, you didn't lose. Great work. Rio, second place. First prize. Marge. Great work. Your prize is the knowledge that you win. Congratulations. So parts of a scholarly article. These are it. I will say these don't appear in every scholarly article that's out there. Different fields do it differently. So if you don't see a methods section, don't panic. It doesn't mean it's not scholarly, but in general, these are some things you can expect to see. Are there questions about parts of a scholarly article?
Rachel, hang on one second, there's a question.
Of course.
Okay, so I was like reviewing the topic, and so like there was this like professor at, I want to say like Chapel Hill or Duke. They didn't technically like write a like full length article on it, but like they like did like a, I wouldn't say an interview, like they like wrote an article about it for like the APA or like Psychology Day, something like that. Like how do we kind of cite something like that? Like would we just cite it like if it was like a New York Times article?
Yeah, so if it's not published in like a journal, which I'll show you, if it's not published in like a journal that has a volume and an issue and like, you know, you can tell it's an academic journal, it's probably what we call a popular source, and those are just fine. The New York Times is a popular source, Time Magazine, stuff like that. A lot of websites are considered popular sources. So I'd have to look at it to say for sure, but from what I'm understanding, I think you probably would want to cite it as like a magazine article or something similar, if that makes sense.
Appreciate it.
I'm always happy to look at examples of things. If you're like, I can't tell what type of source this is or how I should cite it, I'm definitely happy to look at that. Other questions? If I was there, and by the way, it's not that I don't want to be with you. I'm physically not allowed by my boss to do in-person teaching this semester. So
Amy?
with you. What was that?
I said your boss, Amy.
Yes, my department head is Amy. She's wonderful. It's actually her boss who says we can't do it. I don't blame Amy. But anyway, safety first. This video, which you have the link to, I highly encourage you to watch it. It is 3 minutes long. It's super cute. It's all about the peer review process for journal articles. And I promise we're actually going to search for stuff. But I just want to take a second to explain how it works. So let's say that all of you have your PhDs in sociology. You're now experts in sociology. Congratulations. Okay. And Clara writes an article on sociology and she's like, yes, this is really good research. I should publish this. So she sends it to me. I'm the editor of a sociology journal. I would then send it to a few of you and say, it would be blinded. You wouldn't know that it was her. You wouldn't know her institution. And I would say, hey, other experts in sociology, read this research and let me know what you think. And there are like questions that you would ask. So the video talks through, it's like, is it interesting? Is it relevant? Does it matter? Is it original? Is it something that people will care about in the field? And if the research checks out in your expert opinions, you would write back to me and say, yes, you should publish Claire's article. Or no, Claire's article is trash, don't publish it. Or you might say something in between, which would be, I'm sure your article would be wonderful, Clara. You would say something in between, which would be like, yes, publish this, but here's some suggestions. So as the editor, I would make the final call in that situation, but that is basically how it works. And it takes a really long time, or it can take a really long time, which is why scholarly articles or peer-reviewed articles on COVID-19, there aren't as many of them as you might expect, because the process, if they're going through peer review, takes a really long time. There are some, because it's been a year, unfortunately, but just to point that out. Questions about that? We are going to do some searching like right now, I promise.
Okay.
I know you're all like, shut up and show me how to do it. All right. So if you're on your guide, drop this link in the chat again. Any questions while I'm getting my life together here? Okay. Couple databases that I want to show you for finding these articles. We talked about books, and by the way, there's a video right here on how to find books if you forget. Library session on your library guide has these slides. You can ignore the activity links. I think we're going to skip it just in the interest of showing you what you came here to see. This is me. This is the chat box. The chat feature is really popular. Hi. I can't type tonight. It's Rachel showing some students how to use chat. And you're actually talking to a person who works at UNCG. You are not talking to a robot. It's someone who knows our resources. Whoop, that was so loud. I'm sorry. Sorry. It says, hi, Rachel and students.
Whoever was there yesterday helped me yesterday.
Yeah, they can. It's a really popular service. Sometimes it's me. Obviously, right now it's not. So just because it's below my picture, don't think you're necessarily talking to me. You can schedule an appointment. All of my appointments are virtual right now. So when you book a time with me, it'll ask you some questions. It'll confirm it, and I will send you an invite to a Zoom meeting. My email address. Email is by far the easiest way to get to me. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm not just telling you this for likes. I post a lot of things to this YouTube channel that I create for other classes that might be helpful for you. So if you click videos, I don't have them well organized, but you might be interested in some of this stuff, like popular and scholarly sources, or there's a couple database specific ones here. So I encourage you to take a look. How do we find the articles? Let's go back. So if you're on your guide and you click finding articles, I'm going to show you two different databases. The first one is called Academic Search Complete. I show this in nearly every class I teach because I think it is one of the clunkier databases. So if you can learn to use this one and feel comfortable with it, the others will not feel like as much of a challenge. And everything I'm about to show you is in this video to the left, how to use Academic Search Complete. Okay, so don't panic if you're like, I missed a step. I'm also recording this session. So earlier, I made you come up with all those keywords. Now's the time to use them. So greenhouse gas, or if I type or, it's going to give me lots of different suggestions. So if I click one, it'll populate it for me. And I say United States or, okay, and then maybe legal or law or whatever. So what I'm telling the database is, okay, database, find me articles that include any of the terms from the first box and any of the terms from the second one and any of the terms from the third one, some combination of those words, okay? This, by the way, Academic Search Complete is a broad database. It's going to search across lots and lots of different subjects, not just sociology, not just environmental science, whatever. So we're going to get a lot of results. 11,271, way too many. So I'm going to narrow it down. Again, shopping on Amazon, left side, under limit to, click full text. And what that's going to do, it's going to show you articles that we can get a PDF of right now, like this very moment. If you want something and it's not giving you a PDF option, you can always email me. I'll get it for you. Limit to scholarly. Again, they say scholarly peer reviewed. They're not technically the same thing, but a lot of people use those interchangeably. That narrowed it down even more. Oops. Even more. And then publication date. There is no rule for this. I can't say, don't look any further back than 2000 whatever, right? As a general rule, 10 years is a great starting point. Depending on your topic, it might be different for you. Other filters you could play with, there's all kinds of stuff. I tend to just use those three. So from here, if I click on the title of something I'm interested in, this is actually from a law review, so the article is 58 pages long. If you're doing legal research, that's what you're in for. But anyway, it tells me the name of the source, the journal, the year, and usually there'll be a volume and an issue number. Let's see if I can find a slightly more relevant example here. It's because I included legal or law, so I'm not surprised that I'm getting law reviews. So this one lists the authors, the source, volume, and issue number, both of which you'll need for the citation. all these subject terms, pardon me, this is really helpful again if you're having trouble coming up with those search terms. The abstract is going to summarize it. I highly encourage you, when you are digging through lots and lots of sources, read the abstract and decide whether or not it's something that you think is going to be helpful. It can save you a lot of time. That way you're not 5 pages in before you realize this isn't what you wanted. I'm sure I don't need to tell you this at the graduate level, but it's not enough to just read the abstract. If you're going to include it as a source in any kind of paper or project, you need to have read the whole paper, not just the abstract. If you go up, the PDF is here on the left. Again, this is all captured in the video that's here on your guide, so don't worry. The PDF's here, you could download, print, all that good stuff. Couple features I want to show you. Under tools, print's there, email, you click email, you can email this article to yourself. If you want to send yourself a link, don't just grab this link up at the top, right? Your instinct is to go to the URL bar and just grab that link. It won't work later. What you want to do under tools, click permalink, and it's going to give you a permalink. Basically, it will recognize you as a UNCG user, and you'll be able to get back to it using the link. Again, under tools, cite, excuse me. Chicago author date. It's not exactly the same as ASA, so don't rely on this. Take the time to check it against the guide, the ASA tab, but this could be a good starting point. It's not plagiarism for you to copy and paste a citation. It's just not a great idea to do it and then not check it against anything. Okay, that's academic search complete. And you notice, should have clicked open in a new tab, sorry. This is what it looks like, academic search complete, right? I'm going to open another database that looks just like it. This looks exactly the same. It's because they're owned by the same company, but they're searching across very different sets of material. And I could tell what I'm searching in because it says SOC index with full text right here. They're owned by the same company, so you actually have the ability to search across multiple databases at the same time. I could just click academic search complete. I'm already in SOC index, so it's going to select that for me. You could search through lots and lots of different databases. These are all the databases we have that are owned by this company. It will slow your results down the more you select. So usually I don't do that. Here's another trick, because I think you can handle it at the graduate level. If I'm looking for legal, legislation, legalization, you know, all those different endings of that word, if I just type legal, asterisk, it's called truncated searching, and it will search all the endings of that word for you. So I'm going to get legal, legalization, legalize, legislation. I won't get legislation, sorry, but legal, legalize, legalization. And if we do vaccine or, now since I'm searching in SOC index, which is what we call a subject specific database, it's only searching through things that are specifically listed as sociology or social science research journals. So I will get far fewer results. And I just changed the language. Wow, great job, Rachel. Hang on one second. Okay, search. So 143 results, far fewer. I'm afraid now my computer is forever gonna offer slow back as an option.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, wow. Okay, so full text again. And the steps are basically the same from there. Just keep in mind, you're getting far fewer results because, wow, this is gonna be really annoying. You're getting far fewer results because it is a subject specific database. So it's not searching across dozens of different disciplines the way that academic search complete was. Okay. One more.
Rachel, let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Is it possible in these databases to search a concept? Where you just, so I'm thinking just for purposes of discussion, I'm exclusively interested in climate migration.
Mhm.
If I were to put that climate migration in that SOC index with full text, would that be sufficient, or would I need to include some ands in there?
That's a great question. So when you're working in a general database like Academic Search Complete, I would almost always use some ands.
Okay,
When you're working in a subject specific one like this,
yeah,
that might be sufficient. It probably would be. Let's see what we end up with. $76.
okay,
So that's actually, that's not bad. So yes, you absolutely could just search for that term.
okay, okay, great.
Sometimes adding a bunch of search terms can kind of overcomplicate things.
Mhm,
So especially if you're just sort of looking for a broad swath of things,
mhm,
one term might absolutely be sufficient. Great question.
okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Other questions about those two databases? I'm going to show you one more quickly, and then I'm going to change your life with another tool. Change at least one person's life. Any questions? So those two databases are basically cousins. They're owned by the same company, but they do very different things. This database and the next one, these two, are both owned by a different company. And it's going to look a little different, but it's basically going to do the same stuff. Keep in mind, databases that are owned by the same company aren't necessarily searching across the same things. So there are like 20 different ProQuest databases, right? ProQuest is the name of the company. We're searching very different things within the different ProQuest databases. So always make a note. If you were to come to me and say, I found this article and I really need help finding it again, I'll say, okay, which database were you looking at? If you say ProQuest, I'm going to cry because there are so many different ProQuest databases. You want to tell me which one you were looking in. Anyway, so climate migration, we could just do that. Sometimes out of habit, I'll put quotation marks around it. You don't have to do that, but it used to be in databases and sometimes in catalogs. If you didn't, it would search the word climate separate from the word.
Okay,
So this is called phrase searching. It's just a good habit to get into. I'll say most modern databases, you don't have to do that. 68 results. Excuse me. You could click, again, the filters are basically the same over here. They just look a little bit different. So if I click on this one, ProQuest is a little bit prettier. I will say that. It's a little cleaner looking. I have the information, population and environment is the name of the journal, volume 39, issue 4, page numbers. Here's the actual article itself. Kind of a neat thing that ProQuest databases do, they show you related items. And it's just sort of guessing here, so they might not always be relevant, but you could look at that. Cite is here. They do have ASA, so they're fancy. Even though they have ASA, again, please don't copy and paste it without checking it against something. And then under abstract details, this doesn't have the permalink tool the way the other one did. If you want a permalink in this one, you got to go down here and it's under document URL. It's kind of a pain. Honestly, I would just save things or email things to yourself if you can't find the permalink easily. But it basically does the same stuff as the other database does, just searching across different things. So it's well worth your time to explore multiple databases. They're just going to look different. And I've only showed you 3 databases. I want to point out to you again, we have hundreds at the library. So if you're someone who just loves Google Scholar or just loves some other database, live your truth. Just don't pay for access to information and I'll be happy. From the library page, if you click on databases, this is what you'll see. And if you click all subjects and then sociology, this is actually a curated list of our databases that are relevant to sociology that I have put on this page. Does it mean that these are all the databases we have that might help you in sociology? No, but they're the most common ones, I think. Questions about that? I'm almost done, I promise.
That's okay. It's all right.
Okay. So really quickly, evaluating sources. This is something I tend to do more with undergraduates, but I think it's important at this level. There's a system called ABCD that we tend to recommend to people. So don't assume that just because you found a source through a library database or through the library catalog, that it's necessarily high quality or what you need, right? We don't filter out the crazy people. We just kind of organize the information and teach you how to find it. So it's up to you to evaluate the sources. So these are some questions you can ask yourself. There's a nice infographic here that some of my colleagues made. And ABCD stands for authority, bias, currency, and documentation. So just things to consider and think about when you are evaluating a source. So with authority, who wrote the source, who created the source, what are their credentials? Like, how do I know that this person knows what they're talking about? I have a degree in library science. So for me to write an article on brain surgery would be crazy. I'm not an authority on that. And I don't want to make it sound like the only people who are authorities on a subject are people who have advanced degrees, because that's not the case. But that can be one sign. Bias, thinking about why they created the source. Are they looking at different perspectives? Is this just an opinion piece, or is this something maybe more fact-based? Currency, we sort of chatted about. And then documentation, for me, authority and documentation are the big ones. Are they referencing other sources? Can you quickly tell or fact check their information? Are there citations? I would encourage you to look for sources and use sources that document things well. Just some general tips for you. Okay, ASA style citations. You have on your guide, like we were looking at a minute ago, that ASA page. There's a tool that I want to tell you about, and I know I'm over time, Steve, I won't take much longer.
Okay.
I want to mention Zotero. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Zotero or used Zotero before, but when you are doing thesis writing, this is exactly the kind of thing that this program was created for. So it is a citation management software. It's free to use, so I highly encourage you to use it. You may have heard of things like EndNote or RefWorks, or there's one out there called Mendeley. The reason we don't use those is because they're not free. Zotero is open source. So on your page, you have a Zotero link, takes you to this page. There's a little bit of a setup process. So my colleague put together this self-guided tour, which teaches you how to download the software, how to set it up. She even mentioned some like common troubleshooting things. Basically, like what is Zotero? It's kind of three things in one. So it's a desktop program. Okay, I'll show you. This is what my Zotero library looks like. Lots of different projects. You can see here collections, just different things I'm working on. I can organize that way. Let me set this up. It's also a website. It's also a Chrome extension, and there's a Firefox extension too. I always use it in Chrome though. So let me show you the magic of Zotero. So let's say I'm on npr.org, great source of news. If you're looking for a source of news, NPR is awesome. And I'm clicking on an article and I say, wow, this fits in perfectly with my COVID vaccine topic that I was looking at earlier and doing some research on. I want to save this and like come back to this later or put this in my bibliography or something like that. You can do that with Zotero. This little thing right here, this little piece of paper, my extensions. If I click save to Zotero, it saves it into my library. It imports all the data about it. It recognizes what type of item it is, the title, the source, and this works with all different types of things. So you can do it from the library catalog. Harry Potter. Come on, computer. So if I'm like, yes, Harry Potter, this would be an excellent source for my paper on climate change or whatever. If you, sorry, it's a little funky with the catalog. You actually have to open it in its own page or it wants to save it. You can see that that icon changed from a piece of paper to a book. It recognizes that this page is a book. So if I click the title, again, it drops it in here. And something that you can do, why does that come in handy? Okay, so let's say that you're writing a paper. Just bear with me for a second here. I should have pulled up this example earlier. I'm sorry about that. So let's say you've installed Zotero. You're an active Zotero user, and it's time for you to write your paper. And let's say that your computer works better than mine. You open a Google Doc or a Word document. Let me see if I close some tabs, if that will help. Google Docs. Okay. And there's actually a Zotero integration within this. So the way it works is, let's say this was a folder that you had dedicated to your thesis proposal. Great. We have all these different resources here that you've imported. It's time for you to write your paper. Writing. Come on, computer. You're almost there. If I click Zotero, a little red box is going to pop up in a second, and it's going to say, "Okay, what do you want to cite here? What source are you trying to use?" Soon as it pops up, come on now. And we have videos on this. I'll show you where you can find webinars that we've done on this. They're only like 30 minutes long. It really does save you a lot of time. My computer's just angry at me because I'm running Zoom. Give it a couple more seconds. If it doesn't work, I'll just move on, but it is kind of cool to see. Okay, add edit citation. Okay, so it's going to say, because my Zotero account is linked to Google Drive, which is linked to the software. If you haven't used it in a little bit with Google, it might make you sign in. And it's going to say, what citation style do you want to use? And I can use ASA. Okay. And now I'm ready. You only have to do that once when you start writing. So it's like, okay, what are you ready to insert now? I'm going to say Encyclopedia of Gerontology, and it puts in that in-text citation. I'm going to also say Harry Potter. Great. I am all these different things from my library. Okay, and when I'm done, I push enter. And it's going to insert the in-text citation for you in that citation style. Okay, and the reason that's cool is because let's say you write your whole paper and it's time to add the bibliography. Zotero, add edit bibliography. It takes everything you've cited in text and produces a formatted bibliography for you with all the sources you've used. It's way, way cooler when when you see it done in these webinars that we do where we have examples preloaded where it inserts. It's amazing to see it insert like 50 citations for you at once. So I hope that's helpful. I'm sorry that my
Very helpful.
Slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so the point of that, to go back to what we were looking at on your guide, is that we have an entire set of resources devoted to Zotero. So I would highly encourage you to watch the webinar that's here. It's about 30 minutes long. One of my colleagues who's been using Zotero for years did this webinar. The recording is here. I highly suggest that you use it because when it comes time for you to write your thesis and you have 50 citations, it really can save you a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah.
Again, my computer is just sad and tired at the end of the day, but it does work and it is kind of neat when it works. Are there any questions I can answer? I know that's a ton of information.
But what, what you've said, Rachel, is that you're available if and when questions emerge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure that you have the link to those slides, which has
Great.
all the stuff in it,
Great,
including my contact information. Email is definitely the best way to get in touch.
okay,
But yes, I'm happy to help. And can make appointments. We can work over email. We can figure
Right.
that out someday when I'm allowed to be back in my office again.
Mhm.
We can do in-person appointments.
Yeah,
stuff like
okay.
that.
Okay, great.
I had a question real quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned Zotero. Do you recommend that over Mandalay or EndNote?
Yes, because it is free. And I will say, when you create a Zotero account, create it with a personal email address, not your UNCG email address, because that way, when you graduate and lose access to your UNCG email, you can still log in because you'll have used your personal email to sign up. Another reason, or another thing that I want to say about that is if you currently a RefWorks or EndNote or Mendeley user, you can import all those citations into Zotero. So you can transfer it over. There are ways to do that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Other
And
questions?
Matt, have you used Mandalay and another
EndNote
sourcing?
and Zotero.
I used RefWorks in grad school and really liked it. But this
Okay.
school that I went to Carolina.
Yeah,
They have an institutional license for it. We just don't, because
Okay.
we've found that Zotero just does pretty much everything the other software can do
okay,
for free.
great. Well, thank you so much, Rachel.
Absolutely. I'm going to
Deeply appreciate it.